Hello, everybody. It's really great to be here, and I feel like I'm in really great company, so really very good. The question as to what we do with digital technologies and gallery education will depend largely on what we think art is for. And I risked making a grand statement, and I decided that this is what art is for me and for Furtherfield. So it's for the enlargement and evolution of diverse human freedoms of expression, imagination and exchange. For the future sustainability and resilience of the species, art is really important, and it's important for everybody, and it's important for everybody in different ways. So Furtherfield is an artist-run organisation founded by Mark Garrett and myself in 96, 97. Mark and I are artists. I also started out as a sculptor. I think there's something about sculptors and networks, actually. Mark's background was as a painter. He'd been doing lots of work with kind of street art and with pirate radio and other forms of pre-internet communication technologies, working with Heath Bunting, who went on to form Irrational out in Bristol. And we first encountered the internet as a space you could publish to, and there's been some really nice kind of stories of early encounters with the internet. So my first real encounter of the internet was through Backspace, early London cybercafe that really specialised in radical openness, I would say. They had an open door policy, they had early internet, computers with all kinds of hacked software on, and basically the invitation was to come in and find out what the internet was good for as an artist. And this space tended to be occupied by artists, designers, musicians, tramps, and business people. And the conversations that happened between these people really led to really interesting... we started to put stuff onto the net and find out what the net was good for. So the net then was mid-90s, pictures of cats, people's home pages, corporate brochures, and pornography. So this was an open space, a new space for art, and a space that you could put stuff onto and discover yourself in the middle of new kinds of conversations. This was also the time of Brit art. Brit art was, for us, experienced as a less productive context in which to be creating work. It was a closing down of discussions about important subject matters, subjects that were important to us, human subject matters, and more concentration on a kind of production of a few stars through a very powerful marketing machine. So we've got these things moving in different directions at once. We had this slogan on our website for a long time from the really great and slightly mad James Wallbank, who's the founder of Access Space up in Sheffield. And the best artworks create artists. So this kind of resonates with the kind of Boycean idea that we're all artists, which I take to mean that we shape the world because the way we imagine ourselves in the world then changes our behaviour, changes our actions, and that's how the world gets made. So the best artworks creates artists, and when people really become artists, they begin to do this in a reflexive way. So Rebecca said earlier, more and more diverse participants, and this is certainly really important to us as well, because it's important that more and more diverse people are involved in the shaping of the world in an imaginative way. This is a graphic that we created for a campaign, the Daiwo campaign, which was a kind of realization that we were moving as artists from a position of being a kind of isolated practitioners creating wonderful things that might celebrate our own individual genius into a more kind of collaborative context. And this one of the things that the internet allowed us to do was to create an art context together, and this was really important, and it remains really important. I'm just going to have to wave my arms around in front of the image now. So networks changed the way we felt as artists about what the art object was, about what our relationship with the audience and the space of showing stuff. And so in this network we have this interconnectedness of the hysteric, the philosopher, the group of people, the network connector, the key, so the security, the process, the hand, the horrible metaphor of grassroots, the camera, the couple, and what the network did to us as artists was have us realise that all of these things are in connection with many of each other all at the same time, and that the network's alive, and it's alive with feelings and tools and new ways of acting and new kinds of connection. And that it's the space where you make stuff, you distribute it, you share it, and it's always in the middle of the conversation. So now I'm just going to show you where we're at now. So we started out in the mid-90s putting up ugly web pages, suddenly discovering that people were really interested in thinking and talking about art that was that related to big human themes. And so this is where we are now. We've been 2 years at this gallery in Finsbury Park. In our opening show, someone wrote this about us, and I will just... Rebecca tells me that's her daughter. Isn't that lovely? We really like that picture, so thanks, Rebecca. But we also really like this quote. That made us very happy, so I will show that everywhere I go. The website's grown from a really ugly thing in early days to a site that now provides an international online hub for critical review, discussion, co-creation, which is for and by artists, techies and activists. This is a place where we've all grown up together, so we all understand what this context is together, and we make it together. We have about 12,000 subscribers, about 250,000 unique visitors a year, and probably the core to our kind of online platform is our discussion list, which is called Net Behaviour. It has about 1,000 subscribers, of whom about 100 over any 1 month period will get involved in discussions, rows, arguments, jokes, sharing stuff, and often collaborating and sharing opportunities and news of what's going on. And physical space has been really important to kind of understanding what this changing context is. So we opened London's first space for network media art in 2004, and this is a place for making and talking and experiencing stuff. And it's really about bringing unusual collections of people together. So context. Okay, so this comes back again to what we think is important. So this is a kind of just splurge of context of things that are kind of concerning us at the moment. This is our current context. So we are in economic crisis, environmental crisis. We're participating in a network revolution. These connections are moving faster. I think it's really hard for us to understand the scale of the revolution that we're in the middle of. And we're experimenting. You know, in the last 3 years, I've noticed on the underground, about 80% of the people on the underground they're like this. You know, they're looking at handheld devices. That's a huge change in behaviour, and we don't know what's going to happen. We're, as a culture, enclosing many natural and digital resources. So if we think of the PIPA and SOPA acts, the IP, the Act of Patents, we're opening up many natural and digital resources as well through free and open source software, peer-to-peer culture, maker culture, Creative Commons. We share everything, and that is both intimacies and knowledge through social media, but also there's a whole kind of issues of surveillance for us all to be thinking about. And we're working the crowd. So we're either a part of the mob or we're in some collective visionary multitude. And we're contributing to a global networked market. So as artists and arts organisations, we're part of a changing arts economy. And this, we notice it in all the talks this morning, it's changing the relationship between art as a certain kind of practice and then the relationship with marketing and brand and all of these kinds of things. And these are just things for us to kind of keep in our minds. So what does engagement mean? Who's reaching who, how and why? And Rebecca said, who's leading the conversation? And I think that that's a kind of really fundamental thing to bear in mind, because that, again, it's something to play with, and it's part of our materials now, is to think about what it means when somebody else leads the conversation. I'm now just going to end by giving a few examples of how we're operating and how all my examples will, I hope, connect with the context that I was just talking about. So we run public arts events and talks. This is Underground Seas Exchange Party by Shuli Chang, a really eminent artist working in media art really since the very early days. And this was, as part of her opening, she ran the Underground Seeds Exchange Party. This was picking up on changes to European law about what you were allowed to do with seeds and about who was allowed to sell what. So very often we're people dealing with, and what she did was invited people to come and share their seeds, which then was actually an illegal thing for them to be doing, or it was about to become illegal for them to do. The reason I'm showing this picture is because everyone looks so happy. They're having a really good time, and this is really important. It's maintaining this kind of open, convivial context in which people can have really serious conversations about things that are important to them. We've been working in partnership with Co-Design to run experimental hands-on technology workshops, and I've put this up to remind me to say the core to a lot of what we do is about having people involved in making stuff, because it's by making stuff that people understand what the world is. We have 3 thematic strands that we're developing through, since we've been in the Finsbury Park location. Being social, which is about how technology is changing the way we relate to each other and relate to the world, so think back to that network image. Invisible forces, which is about how power moves through networks. And free, open and wild, which is taking a critical look at the relationship between kind of freedom, openness and environmental impacts. So I'm going to finish with 4 examples of artworks, if I can cram it in. Kay's blog by Liz Sterry. So Liz followed Kay, 18-year-old Canadian teenager, online for 3 months, just her blog, worked out where she lived, where she worked, who her friends were, what she looked like, what her dog was, what her concerns were, and what her bedroom looked like. And the image on the right is a replica of Kay's bedroom built from what she discovered online, what Liz discovered online. And this project, we're touring currently to shopping malls. The power of this work was seeing mothers standing with their sons and daughters in the middle of this room, suddenly feeling an eerie, a kind of spooky sense of the way their teenagers may be creating a window on their lives. And, okay, so I'm just going to leave you thinking about that one. London Wall by Thompson and Craighead. They scrape the tweets from around a location, and it provides a visual, and then they create these really very beautiful kind of bill posts of the conversations that are happening in that location. We commissioned this for our opening show in the in the gallery in the park, because we wanted local audiences to see themselves in our gallery. We wanted them to see their own lives, their own location, and there are things here that really locate this to where we are. And the turns of phrase, the concerns, and an ingenious intern of ours took photographs of each of these tweets and then tweeted it back to the original tweeters, and then the tweeters went, oh, I'm in an art gallery, and then came and had themselves photographed pointing at their tweets, which then got tweeted back out. So here you start to see people start playing with the medium, and that was a very beautiful and unexpected moment. The last thing I'll talk about is this piece called A Crowded Apocalypse by Iacosi. Because this is an artwork that really gives us a portrait of the World Wide Web that we don't often see. They manufactured a conspiracy. Actually, they manufactured a set of conspiracy theories using these micropayment sites that are used by companies to employ people for digital piecework, so kind of little micropayments. And by using a kind of set of instructions, they built, working with people around the world who do this kind of work, a collection of images, one of which we see here, of people protesting against constructed conspiracies. So what we get then is these images of people who, for £5, will go out in the street and have themselves photographed protesting about something, which gives us a kind of view of the internet, which I think's a kind of, often we see a very thin layer on top of the internet, and the work that we're doing with artists is to help us to kind of take the lid off the internet and see what it looks like from the other side, and who's doing what and why. And I just think that there's a lot in there that can be useful to people who are developing new forms of digital education. I'll stop there.